The Obama IRS scandal is back thanks to new documents obtained by Judicial Watch. Remember Lois Lerner, the former head of the IRS tax-exempt status department and the central figure in the IRS scandal targeting Tea Party organizations? Well, some recently unsealed court documents reveal that she knowingly suppressed, stonewalled, and stalled these groups to help Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. Lois Lerner and her top aide, Holly Paz's 2017 deposition transcripts have finally become public after 4 years of the plaintiffs trying to get them unsealed. These docs show that these IRS officials both knew that most Tea Party groups were legally entitled to tax-exempt status in the run-up to Obama's re-election, but they still stalled their applications.
And now the Tea Party movement emerged around the beginning of the Obama administration. Many of the groups were applying for the ability to operate as nonprofit organizations. These conservative groups, of course, also threatened Obama's re-election campaign. Thanks to the First Amendment, though, the feds couldn't legally suppress them. So instead, Obama used the IRS as a backdoor way to get them, a typical move by the Democrats. The IRS scrutinized groups with the words Tea Party, Patriot to determine if they merited the tax status. However, depositions now prove that Lerner and Paz were well aware the IRS had no legal standing to deny these applications. So, Jen, as you just said, instead the IRS stalled, and stalled some more.
That's right. It's a further confirmation of knowing abuse of the Tea Party movement by Obama's IRS. It amounts to absolute election interference. And yet this entire scandal has really gone largely unchecked. Lois Lerner has never been prosecuted, which is exactly why Joe Biden's massive expansion of the IRS with 87,000 new agents, that should concern every American. Considering this new information, we're supposed to trust that this agency won't go after MAGA conservatives? Yeah, no chance. The president of Judicial Watch has done the heavy lifting on uncovering these documents, and he joins us now, Tom Fitton. Tom, welcome. It's great to have you tonight.
Good to be with you both. Thank you.
Tom, I want to read these excerpts from Holly Paz's deposition that pretty much sums up the knowledge of their abuse. She says, quote, "My recollection is that at the time, my thinking was that the majority of the C4 applications, while they may have indicated some amount of political activity, that we would not have enough basis to make a determination that would be their primary activity and deny them exempt status." The questioner then says, and therefore they would receive an approval or recognition of exemption. Paz replies, correct, and yet the IRS still delayed and denied the processing of these applications. Tom, can Lerner and Paz be prosecuted now that we have proof of what they did?
Oh, I don't know. If they were Trump supporters, you can bet the Justice Department would not be bothered by the statute of limitations and think of a way to prosecute them. One of the worst decisions of the Trump Justice Department under Jeff Sessions was the refusal to do anything about what Lois Lerner did. So that was a big missed opportunity in terms of accountability. But, you know, this kind of was, people say, what happened in 2016? Where did that come from? Well, it came from 2012. There you had Obama successfully use the IRS to suppress an entire political movement against him to help reassure his reelection. He was using the IRS. We found the FBI and the Justice Department were also called in to try to help suppress these groups. And as these documents that took forever and a day to get out show, they knew at the time what they were doing. They had no lawful basis to do. They had the right to incorporate themselves or under the rules of the IRS. And on top of that, they were also, according to the documents, knowingly going after and trying to get the names of donors, even though the IRS knew they had no right to it. And of course, this was all part of a Democrat-Obama operation that was very much concerned about a big Supreme Court decision at the time called Citizens United, which opened up under the First Amendment the ability of more groups to participate. And so they needed to throttle that because they were concerned about what would happen in the election. And sure enough, they used the IRS to do it illegally. And, you know, as you all pointed out, the reason the IRS supposedly needs all these extra employees is because most of Washington, D.C. doesn't trust it. But the Biden operation has come in, and as best as I can tell, we'll probably have 87,000 new Lois Lerners if the Biden administration
Yeah,
gets
it certainly seems that way, Tom. And you know, Lois Lerner, she's really shamelessly denied in the past any knowledge of the Tea Party movement and their activities. But we also learned this from the filing. In a June 1, 2012 email exchange, Lerner wrote that Citizens United is by far the worst thing that has ever happened to this country. And she goes on to say that we are witnessing the end of America. There has always been the struggle between the capitalistic ideals and the humanistic ideals, her quote. So, Tom, Citizens United, the decision upholding free speech under the First Amendment regarding campaign finance laws, is apparently, in her eyes, the worst thing ever. And we're supposed to believe that the IRS wasn't operating with biased political motives here?
Well, that's right. And they were trying to undo that Supreme Court decision through IRS regulations. And, you know, the irony is these Tea Party groups technically didn't need to file anything with the IRS. They could have begun operations on their own. But because they wanted to dot the I's and cross the T's, being fine Americans, they followed all the rules beyond what the rules required. And hundreds of groups were suppressed. And the other thing these documents show is that they were lying about what was behind this. They said, oh, there were too many of these groups. That wasn't the case. There was one decision they had to make, whether to approve one key group. And they were waiting for that decision before they approved all these other Tea Party groups. And they simply refused to make the decision and stalled and delayed and purposely sent needless questions to them to justify delays. I tell you, this IRS is a sword of Damocles over our First Amendment. And they went after the First Amendment in 2012. 2016, Obama and gang saw opportunities again to misuse the federal government to target their opposition, Trump and company. And in 2020, you had the Ukraine scandal where you had the national security deep state target Trump. The question is, what's going to happen in 2024?
Tom Fitton, appreciate the great work that you do. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.